They believe he's in a certain place, yes. And they believe they know where the place is, but it's sacred. You can do nothing, nothing.
There's a reason no one found Genghis Khan's tomb for a millennium. A secret order of guardians, redirected rivers, and a forest planted to hide all traces. It was the perfect cover-up.
We are right now in a valley that is just to the south of the highly restricted area of northern Mongolia. It was once probably part of the forbidden zone that Genghis Khan had originally created.
But now a team of explorers has cracked the code. They've opened the tomb, and what they discovered is sending shockwaves across the globe, challenging history itself. The rise of an empire and the birth of a mystery. From the windy plains of Mongolia came one of the most powerful leaders the world has ever seen, Genghis Khan. Before he was the Great Khan, he was just a boy named Temujin, and his early life was tough, full of betrayal and fighting just to survive. But you see, those hard times made him an incredibly strong and determined fighter.
Well, the Mongols were the most ruthless people that probably ever existed. I think as a warrior class, as warriors, they had the least value of human life.
By the early 13th century, he had done the impossible. He united all the warring Mongol tribes into one unstoppable force. Here's the thing about Genghis Khan's power. It came from his brilliant, brand new way of organizing his army. He got rid of the old system where your family name was all that mattered. Instead, he organized his soldiers using a decimal system. Groups of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 men. And get this, the leaders of these groups were chosen based on skill alone, not because of who their father was. This made his army super loyal, organized, and effective.
It's clearly a tomb, but it's too old to be Genghis Khan's. It's Bronze Age. It's more than 3,000 years old.
His soldiers, mostly archers on horseback, were trained from the time they were kids. Their battle tactics were like nothing anyone had ever seen. They'd use lightning-fast charges, fake a retreat to lure their enemies into a trap, and use psychological tactics so well that entire cities would surrender without even putting up a fight. Between 1207 and 1225, Genghis Khan launched campaigns that changed the map forever. He stormed through parts of China, leaving cities like Zhongdu in ruins. But his most fierce response was aimed at the Khwarezmian Empire.
The Mongols succeeded because of their discipline, their speed and their discipline, and the awe in which they were held.
After their leader made a fatal mistake with Genghis's envoys, the Khan unleashed an overwhelming force. Cities like Samarkand and Bukhara were surrounded and completely dismantled. Very few people survived. His fierceness was a strategy. Fear became his greatest tool. Entire regions gave up as soon as they heard his armies were coming, because they knew what happened to those who fought back. But he wasn't just a conqueror. Genghis Khan was also a smart ruler. He created a legal code called the Yasa, which brought order and justice to his massive empire. It protected diplomats, merchants, and even allowed people to practice their own religion, which was a pretty radical idea for the time. He hired smart administrators and scholars from the lands he conquered to help run things. They built an empire that ran on a system where the best person got the job, with safe trade routes and a legendary postal system called the Yam. This relay system connected the empire from the Pacific Ocean all the way to the Caspian Sea. The result was the Pax Mongolica, or Mongol Peace, a time of stability that allowed trade and ideas to flourish. The Silk Road, once dangerous, was now safe under Mongol protection. But when he finally passed away, his era of power ended, and an even bigger mystery began. And that mystery was so deep and so dark, it would be guarded by secrets, legends, and the very land itself for centuries to come. When Genghis Khan passed away, the Mongols didn't just bury a leader, They buried a legend under layers of secrets and rituals that have held for nearly 800 years. The effort to hide his final resting place wasn't just about protecting a grave, it was about honoring a figure they saw as almost divine. One of the most mysterious places tied to his burial is a region known as the Ik Korig, or the Great Taboo.
It's 1219 to 1275.
Albert, that's
crazy.
That's the sweet spot.
It's amazing what we found. You know, the tiles date from the 13th and 14th century, right around the time of Genghis Khan and his sons.
Believe it or not, this is a heavily protected area of about 240 square kilometers around Burkhan Khaldun, a sacred mountain in northeastern Mongolia. For centuries, only the royal family could enter. It was patrolled by a special group of warriors called the Darkhad, a class of hereditary guardians whose only job was to protect this land. These guards treated the area with incredible respect, making sure no one entered or disturbed it. For generations, the Darkhad performed rituals and kept the land pure, ensuring the Khan's possible resting place remained hidden. Every time someone gets close to solving the mystery, something strange happens, almost like the tomb is guarding itself. The cursed hunt for Genghis Khan's lost tomb. Local stories make the mystery even deeper. Legends say the Mongols actually diverted rivers to flow over the burial site, completely washing away any trace of the tomb. Doing something like that in such a rugged area would have taken a huge effort, but for the Mongols, nothing was too much to honor their great Khan. Other stories tell of thousands of trees being planted to hide the landscape and make it look like untouched wilderness again. Over the centuries, these trees grew, blending everything into the natural scenery and making it impossible to spot. The permafrost in the region is also thought to have helped, keeping the site sealed in ice and frozen soil. But here's the kicker. Another part of this mystery lies far away in Ordos, Inner Mongolia, a part of modern-day China. There's a massive, impressive mausoleum built to honor Genghis Khan that gets thousands of visitors a year. But despite how grand it is, the building is empty. The coffin inside contains no remains. The Ordos site is just a symbolic memorial, not his real tomb. This has only made people more curious about where the real grave is and why the secret has been guarded so fiercely for so long. The rituals and legends have turned Genghis Khan's tomb into one of history's greatest puzzles, and that mystery has always called out to modern explorers, daring them to try and solve it. Even with centuries of secrets and legends standing in the way, modern science gave explorers new tools that reignited the search for the tomb. From satellite pictures to radar that can see underground, archaeologists have launched mission after mission to solve this ancient puzzle.
I was pretty skeptical in the field. I never expected to get 13th and 14th century dates. I mean, this is just astonishing.
One of the biggest efforts was led by National Geographic explorer Albert Lin Yu Min. Using a mix of satellite imaging, magnetometry, and ground-penetrating radar, Lin focused on the Khenti Mountains of northeastern Mongolia. This area is deeply connected to Mongolian history and is thought to be near where Genghis Khan was buried. What made Lin's project so special was that he worked with local Mongolian volunteers. To respect their culture and beliefs, his team was careful not to dig or disturb the land. By studying satellite photos and using non-invasive tech, they found several interesting spots with strange shapes underground. While they didn't find the tomb, the mission showed a new, respectful way to do archaeology. Years before Lin, another huge expedition took place. Between 1989 and 1992, a joint Japanese and Mongolian team launched the Three Rivers Expedition. They searched huge areas of land near the Onon, Kurlan, and Tul rivers, a region where many Mongol nobles were thought to have been buried. Over several years, they found about 1,380 possible graves of Mongol aristocrats. This helped them understand Mongol burial customs better, but Genghis Khan's tomb itself remained hidden. It showed just how hard it would be to find one specific tomb that was intentionally hidden among so many others. Perhaps the most obsessed person in this quest was Maury Kravitz, an American lawyer who became an adventurer. For over 40 years, Kravitz dedicated his life to finding the tomb. He went on more than a dozen trips to Mongolia, building relationships with local experts and communities. Unlike others who relied only on tech, Kravitz used a mix of old history books, his own intuition, and fieldwork. He believed the tomb was hidden in plain sight, disguised by the natural land and ancient rituals.
3 years ago, while sleeping on a friend's couch, I had a dream that took complete hold of me. I set out to find a legendary tomb in a forbidden place.
Despite all his work, Kravitz never found the tomb. His missions, however, fueled stories of strange and horrible things happening. Locals and even his own team members said they had weird dreams, got sick for no reason, and had their equipment mysteriously fail. These stories added to the feeling that the tomb wasn't just protected by secrets, but by some kind of spiritual force that didn't want to be found. But just when everyone thought they were getting closer, a bombshell piece of evidence suggested the real tomb was somewhere nobody had ever thought to look. A shocking new lead and Mountain X. Among all the explorers chasing the ghost of Genghis Khan, one man, Alan Nichols, came forward with a truly bold and controversial idea that challenged everything. While most searchers were looking around Burkhan Khaldun, the sacred mountain everyone linked to the Khan, Nichols suggested they were all looking in the wrong place. He proposed that the real tomb was hidden on a remote, uncharted mountain he would only call Mountain X. Nichols didn't just pull this idea out of thin air. He based his theory on years of studying historical records and geographical clues. What made his idea so surprising was that it shifted the search from northeastern Mongolia to a region much closer to the Yellow River in Inner Mongolia. This area, full of history and huge unexplored lands, became the focus of one of his most secret expeditions.
The Burkhan Khaldun, it's not just a mountain, it's a whole mountain range. It's more than 12,000 square kilometers. To begin to investigate that area, it would take more than 100 archaeologists all their lives just to begin to look.
To check his theory, Nichols put together a small team and used modern tools like ground-penetrating radar and magnetometers. These tools can spot strange things under the ground, like hidden chambers or man-made structures, without having to dig. The results were fascinating. In a few spots, the equipment picked up unusual patterns that hinted at hidden chambers or artifacts. But Nichols never fully published his findings, which only added to the mystery around his work. What made his expedition even more interesting was how secretive it was. He was working in a politically sensitive area with military zones and restricted access. Nichols knew this and made sure his work got as little attention as possible. There were no big teams, no press releases, and no media. Every single move was planned to avoid drawing the wrong kind of attention. This secrecy wasn't just about politics. Even among other explorers and archaeologists, Nichols was known for guarding the details of his work very closely. Some people criticized him for not being more open, but others respected his caution. After all, he was searching for the tomb of a national hero, and he believed that announcing a discovery too early could cause major problems or even spark disputes between the countries connected to Genghis Khan's legacy. He was playing a high-stakes game, and he was playing it close to the chest. After generations of wondering and decades of scientific searching, the moment finally arrived. The hidden tomb believed to belong to Genghis Khan was at last uncovered. This event, hailed as one of the most important archaeological moments of our time, marked the end of one of history's greatest mysteries. The excavation wasn't rushed. It was the result of careful teamwork between international groups and the Mongolian government. Because the site was so important to Mongolian culture, opening the tomb needed official approval from Mongolia, oversight from UNESCO, and monitoring by the United Nations to make sure everything was done ethically and respectfully. Every step was handled with extreme care. Teams of researchers and officials agreed on exactly how to proceed to avoid disrespecting any Mongolian traditions. Experts in history, anthropology, and religion were all brought in. The goal was to find a balance between scientific discovery and cultural respect. Only after everyone agreed did a small team with advanced tools enter the site, all while being watched by international observers and local community leaders. Inside, they found a large and masterfully built burial chamber. The design showed influences from many of the different regions the Mongol Empire had touched. Stone slabs with strange symbols carved into them surrounded the tomb. Within the chamber was a stunning collection of burial goods, each one giving a clue about the life of the person buried there. Among the items were decorated weapons, ceremonial armor, ancient scrolls, and even containers with preserved food offerings. Everything was in such good condition it was clear they had been sealed away with incredible care. Perhaps the most important discovery of all was the presence of human remains. The skeleton appeared to be that of a powerful male leader from the early 13th century. The bones were incredibly well preserved, likely because of the cold, dry conditions and the airtight seal of the tomb. Next to the remains were pieces of rich fabrics, some still showing patterns that hadn't faded over 800 years. Once everything was carefully removed, a new phase of the investigation began. Scientists used radiocarbon dating to figure out the age of the artifacts and the skeleton. The results lined up perfectly with the time of Genghis Khan's passing in 1227, providing powerful evidence that this was his tomb. Ancient DNA analysis was also done on the bones. While they couldn't compare it to a known sample of Khan's DNA, they found genetic markers that link the individual to Central Asian people, matching historical records of the Mongol royal line.
When I studied carefully the last days of Cleopatra, I realized it was the beginning of a religious act that might end up with her being buried in a temple, and her lost tomb could be found there.
Researchers have just uncovered an ancient tunnel that might lead to the long-lost tomb of Cleopatra.
Huge areas of the world that have never been looked at by archaeology at all, or if looked at by archaeology, looked at only minimally.
This remarkable discovery has reignited interest in one of history's most iconic queens. Cleopatra, known for her power and her ties to Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, has remained elusive in death, with her final resting place unknown for centuries. Could this tunnel finally reveal where Egypt's last queen was laid to rest? We will now discover the hidden truths of this ancient empire that will change the world. The discovery of Cleopatra's lost tomb. The uncovering of Cleopatra's tomb is one of the coolest things to have happened in archaeology. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty, has always been a fascinating character. She's known for her smart strategies, political cleverness, and famous romantic connections with big Roman names like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. For ages, the true spot where she was buried was unknown, which made a lot of people curious. Before we dive deeper, it's clear that this discovery holds far more than we ever expected, and what comes next will leave you utterly speechless. Everything started to change in the early 21st century, thanks to the efforts of two highly dedicated people. Dr. Zahi Hawass, who used to be Egypt's Minister of Antiquities, and Kathleen Martinez, a lawyer from the Dominican Republic who taught herself all about archaeology because of her admiration for Cleopatra.
I don't think 100% as an archaeologist, because my first training is as a criminal lawyer. So I took Cleopatra as a case.
Martinez came up with a gutsy guess that Cleopatra and Mark Antony were buried together not in Alexandria, but in a place called the Temple of Taposiris Magna, close to the Old City. She based her guess on detailed readings of writings from ancient historians like Plutarch and Cassius Dio. These old texts hinted that Cleopatra might be lying in a temple dedicated to Isis, a goddess Cleopatra held in high regard. In 2005, Martinez managed to get permission from the Egyptian authorities to start digging at Taposiris Magna. The work wasn't easy at all. The site is on the edge of the Libyan desert, filled with old, crumbling structures and layers upon layers of historical stuff. Over time, the team dug up some pretty amazing things. They found coins with Cleopatra's face, statues, and writings. These finds helped support the idea that Cleopatra had a connection to this place. The search turned up some really weird and surprising finds too. Many important discoveries were made during odd weather changes, like sudden sandstorms or unexpected rain showers, almost as if the weather was pointing the archaeologists in the right direction. Some of the team even said they had dreams about old ceremonies, which they took as spiritual signs helping them along. One of the most exciting finds was a big unfinished tunnel under the temple that led to several rooms. This tunnel was cut with a lot of skill, making it seem like it was meant for someone very important, maybe Cleopatra herself.
Not a site that would have piqued the interest of the archaeological community, particularly any connection between the site and Cleopatra. This was news to me.
In these rooms, they found a hidden chamber full of gold stuff and writings about a queen of kings, which was often a way to refer to Cleopatra. When they first announced they had found Cleopatra's tomb, it was a big deal in the news. There were press conferences, documentaries made, and the items found were carefully taken care of. Many of these items, like statues, jewelry, and coins, ended up in museums all over the world. People flocked to see these exhibitions, eager to learn more about Cleopatra and her era. The discovery at Taposiris Magna turned into a major point of interest for archaeologists. Experts from different fields came together to dig more around the area, which led to more buildings and items being found that taught us a lot about ancient times. This also made them think again about other places in Egypt, where important people might be buried, sparking new digs and important historical finds. The place where they found the tomb quickly turned into a hot spot for tourists, which really helped the local economy and made people appreciate Egypt's history even more. They set up educational activities and talks to share what they learned from this discovery, inspiring a whole new bunch of archaeologists and history buffs. Finding Cleopatra's tomb gave us a ton of cool insights into her life and rule. One of the neatest things about Cleopatra was how many languages she could speak: Egyptian, Greek, Latin, and maybe even more. This skill helped her a lot in dealing with different people and leaders from various places. Her ability to switch languages so easily was a big plus for her in keeping strong political alliances. After finding Cleopatra's tomb, new details about her time as queen started to come to light, showing how she balanced different cultures. Exploring Cleopatra's hidden world. Cleopatra's time as queen was a cool mix of Egyptian and Greek ways. She held on to Egyptian traditions and religious practices, even showing herself as a modern-day version of the goddess Isis. But she also kept close to her Greek roots. This mix could be seen in the art, buildings, and religious events of her time, making for a vibrant cultural scene. The tomb they think was Cleopatra's shows off her taste in architecture. The place has fancy carvings, hidden rooms, and complex tunnels that show off the advanced building skills of that time. The design of the tomb looks like it was meant to be as grand and classy as Cleopatra wanted her final resting spot to be. The things they found in Cleopatra's tomb are full of meaning. There's golden jewelry, statues, and writings that show her royal status, religious beliefs, and political dreams. These items give us a peek into her life, her reign, and how she wanted to be remembered as a godlike ruler. The symbols and messages on these items tell us how Cleopatra saw herself and how she wanted future generations to see her. The discovery of hidden rooms and tunnels in the tomb suggests that Cleopatra went to great lengths to keep her final resting place secure. These hidden parts hint at her clever use of architecture and a deep respect for the afterlife. They also add a layer of intrigue, showing how important it was for Cleopatra to keep her legacy safe. The ancient site at Taposiris Magna is quite expansive, with lots of rooms and tunnels connected together. At the center of this big complex is the main burial site, which is beautifully decorated with carvings and gold items. Many believe this could be the place where Cleopatra was buried because everything about it, from its size to its fancy decorations, suggests it was made for a very important person. The presence of statues that look like Cleopatra and others that represent Egyptian gods and goddesses makes this belief even stronger. As the excavators dug deeper, they found a bunch of golden jewelry like necklaces, bracelets, and rings, all decorated with hieroglyphs that speak of kingship and the gods. They even found coins with Cleopatra's face on them and other writings that further point to this being her tomb. These discoveries are not just cool because they're ancient and golden, but they also help us connect directly with Cleopatra's era and her reign as queen, giving us a clearer picture of what her life and rule were like. The end of Cleopatra's life is shrouded in a lot of debate. While the common story is that she died from the bite of a poisonous asp, some historians think there might be more to the story. There's a fascinating theory out there that suggests Cleopatra's dealings with Rome, like her well-known alliances with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, were all part of a much larger plan.
We're already proving with archaeological evidence that everything that was written about this temple.
According to this idea, Cleopatra was aiming to blend the Greek, Roman, and Egyptian empires into one massive empire, with Alexandria as the capital. This suggests that she was looking far beyond just Egypt and wanted to rule over a combined, powerful empire centered around her leadership. Finding Cleopatra's tomb has also sparked a lot of talk about a potential curse, kind of like the famous curse associated with King Tut's tomb, that might affect those who disturb her resting place. While there's no hard evidence for such a curse, the idea adds a layer of extra intrigue to the discovery. It's also interesting to note that many of the big moments in the excavation seem to happen during significant astrological events, like eclipses or when the planets lined up in certain ways. Some folks think these might not just be coincidences, but could be signs of some divine or ancient influence. Some of the archaeologists on the team have even mentioned having sudden moments of insight or gut feelings that led them to important finds, like hidden rooms or hard-to-understand inscriptions. These experiences are hard to explain scientifically, but they definitely make the whole discovery process feel more intriguing. Cleopatra's image as a semi-divine ruler, often linked to the goddess Isis, was a big part of her strategy to solidify her power and connect with her people. The items found in the tomb that show her depicted as Isis really highlight this part of her reign. Behind the tomb's discovery is a city that once played a big role in trade and held a mix of Egyptian and Greek traditions. The ancient temple of Osiris. Let's also talk about Taposiris Magna itself. It was founded by Pharaoh Ptolemy II Philadelphus sometime between 280 and 270 BC, and the name means Great Tomb of Osiris, after a major temple dedicated to Osiris, one of the key Egyptian gods. After Alexander the Great took over Egypt in 332 BC and set up Alexandria, Taposiris Magna became an important spot for celebrating the festival of Koyak, which was all about the death and resurrection of Osiris. This festival was a big deal during the time of the Ptolemaic kingdom, which lasted until Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, died in 30 BC. In 30 BC, 1798, Napoleon came to Egypt with his troops, and the French scientists who were with him started studying the architecture of Taposiris Magna. Their findings were later published in a famous book called Hidden Description de l'Egypte Hidden. Then in the 20th century, the Italian archaeologist Evaristo Breccia did more digging at the site. There's even a chance that Alexander the Great himself might have stopped by Taposiris Magna on his way to another place, which suggests the city was already important back then. Located right on the edge of what used to be Lake Mareotis, the city probably played a big role in trade between Egypt and Libya. People could use the lake for transport and then go overland. The area was also known for making really good wine that was famous far and wide, though not everyone agrees on exactly how the city fit into the bigger picture of ancient trade. Up on the ridge at Taposiris, there are two ancient structures that have a lot of stories to tell.
When I study carefully the last days of Cleopatra, I realized it was the beginning of a religious act.
Restored a bit in the 1930s, these buildings remind us of past times. One of them played a key role in recreating the famous Lighthouse of Alexandria, while the other is a temple for Osiris, which some believe might even be Cleopatra's final resting place. In a thorough study done by 1974, it turned out that the Tower of Abusir wasn't a lighthouse or a watchtower, as previously thought, but more likely a memorial built in the Ptolemaic period after the nearby pharaoh's lighthouse was constructed. The site has revealed both personal and public buildings, including water storage areas and churches. The burial site here shows a mix of ancient burial styles with everything from stone coffins and pyramid shapes to columns and fancy pillars. This place was bustling from the 2nd century BC all the way to the 7th century AD, showing just how long and rich its history is. Back in 2022, a cool find happened under an old temple in Egypt. Digging down 66 feet, archaeologists found a long tunnel, like super long, 4,285 feet. It used to move water around, just like this famous tunnel in Greece called the Eupalinos Tunnel. The crew that found it has been working there since 1998. In 2010, they dug up this big granite statue of a Ptolemaic king. But get this, the statue's head was missing. They also found the main way into the Osiris temple, which had limestone all over the base.
So these attacks probably stem from a prejudice against what they viewed as a foreign or new religion. So if they weren't having a bunch of what was going on with the more exclusive aspects of the cult of Isis? Well, we don't really know. Initiation into the mysteries was a secretive process.
One of these stones even showed there used to be a bunch of Sphinx statues lined up at the entrance, which must have looked pretty grand back in the day. Dr. Zai Hawass, who's pretty famous in the archaeology world, thinks the headless statue might be of Ptolemy IV. He's the guy who had the Taposiris Magna temple built. Right behind the temple, they found a huge cemetery with mummies buried in the Greco-Roman style. Dr. Hawass said these mummies were buried facing the temple, which might mean it was a special burial site for someone really important. Maybe even Cleopatra. The whole thing started when Kathleen Martinez, a lawyer from the Dominican Republic, decided to lead her own expedition. Since then, her team has found 27 graves. 20 are like vaulted sarcophagi, kind of half in, half out of the ground. The other 7 graves have steps going down to simpler burial spots. They found 10 mummies in these tombs, and 2 of them were wrapped in gold. It looks like these were some pretty high-class burials, probably for someone royal from the Greco-Roman times. As they keep digging at Taposiris Magna, more clues about Cleopatra's life come to light, with hidden rooms showing a closer look at her world. New finds at the Temple of Isis. Martinez also said they found a temple at Taposiris Magna that was dedicated to the goddess Isis, and they dug up coins with Alexander the Great's face on them. Inside the temple, there were some deep shafts, and 3 looked like they were used for burials. There's a chance that these might be the final resting places of some pretty big names, like Cleopatra and Mark Antony. She mentioned they found a really nice head sculpture they think is of Cleopatra, and 22 coins with her face on them, which shows her as a beautiful queen. This goes against what some British curator thought. He said she wasn't that good looking. The stuff they found really shows off her beauty. Plus, the head sculpture didn't show any signs of sub-Saharan features, which knocks down another theory. They also found a cool mask of a guy with a split chin, and it looks a lot like what Mark Antony was supposed to look like. Back in 22, they used radar to check out the temple area, looking for Cleopatra and Mark Antony's tombs. The dig was led by Dr. Hawass and Kathleen Martinez. They found out the area had been messed up during the Second World War's Battle of El Alamein. They even found some old bombs and soldiers' remains from Italy and New Zealand in the temple tunnels. They had to stop digging in 2013, but Martinez got the okay to keep going later on. In October 2015, there was this show called Hidden Cleopatra's Lost Tomb Hidden on Channel 4 in the UK.
From pre-existing pagan gods who existed in the area of the Near East prior to the 1st century AD. And all of these just tell us how important it is.
Martinez was on there saying they were really close to finding Cleopatra's tomb, pointing to a spot where they thought 2 tombs might be hidden deep underground. They were hoping to start digging them up in the 2016 season. Then on June 21st of 2020, the Science Channel put out a 2-hour special called Hidden Cleopatra: Sex, Lies, and Secrets Hidden, showing off the latest stuff they found. By January 2021, Martinez and her team announced they'd found some ancient tombs about 2,000 years old from the Greek and Roman days. These tombs had mummies with golden tongue-shaped amulets, believed to help them talk to Osiris after they died. They also found mummies with crowns that had horns and a snake on them, showing they were pretty important people. Now just imagine, they recently found a hidden tunnel under the busy streets of Egypt, and it looks like it could be Cleopatra's lost tomb. The tunnel, shut off for ages, had all these cool hieroglyphs and led to a big stone door with Cleopatra's seal. They pushed it open, and inside there was a beautifully decorated sarcophagus with jewels all over it. When they opened it, they found Cleopatra's mummy and a bunch of awesome treasures that tell us more about her rule. This find is a huge deal and gives us a new look at the famous queen's life and fancy burial. Cleopatra VII, the final ruler from the ancient Ptolemaic family in Egypt, breathed her last between the 10th and 12th of August in the year 30 before Christ in the city of Alexandria, when she was 39 years old. While we do not know the precise day of Cleopatra's demise, Theodore Cressy Skeat concluded it likely occurred on August 12, 30 BC, after analyzing historical texts and comparing different academic viewpoints.
The heavens and directly approaches the gods. I approach the gods below and the gods above face to face and worship them from nearby. Over the years, historians have noticed the striking personal nature of Lucius.
This timing is corroborated by scholars Stanley M. Burstein, James Grout, Aidan Dodson, and Diana Hilton. Although Hilton posited it might hover near August 12, conversely, Dwayne W. Roller, Joanne Fletcher, and Janie Anderson advocate for August 10, 30 BC as a potential date. A widely circulated tale recounts how Cleopatra met her end by letting an asp, a deadly snake native to Egypt, bite her. Nonetheless, ancient Roman chroniclers like Strabo, Plutarch, and Cassius Dio speculated that she might have resorted to poison, possibly administered through a lethal lotion or a spiked hair accessory. Present-day academics are torn over whether the tale of the snake bite holds any truth, or if perhaps Cleopatra was forcibly eliminated. Some historians argue that her adversary in Rome, Octavian, might have cornered her into selecting her own manner of death. Could the discovery of Cleopatra's tomb change everything we know about ancient Egypt? Or is there still more waiting to be uncovered? Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.